Hello, everyone, and welcome to our pre-college SIG meeting. We have a very well-respected colleague today who is going to do a 10-minute presentation to start our conversation. His name is Pascal Gambardella, and he is a master modeler. And he has modeled physical phenomena, which makes sense since he has a PhD in physics, satellite motion, behavior of people and organizations and corporations. He works in many disciplines and enjoys going across discipline, which is something we need to do more of. He got his doctorate from SUNY, State University of New York at Stony Brook, has a master's degree in system dynamics from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. He retired from Computer Sciences Corporation after a 37-year career as a scientist, senior business architect, and corporate methodologist. While at that organization, he worked on contracts for many government agencies, including NASA, IRS, Center for Medical and Medicare and Medicaid Services, and the Department of Defense. And he has graciously agreed to work with us to help us on develop a peer bullying model for K-12. He is one of the main contact people for the System Dynamics Society Psychology and Human Behavior SIG. So he has really quite an eclectic set of interests and background, and we're really very pleased to have him with us today. And he's going to start out with a 10-minute presentation, and then we're going to open this up for general conversation. So, Pascal, you're up.
Hey, I think I should have written a shorter bio for the System Dynamics Society website. Okay, let's see. Let me share my screen. Let me pop up to, okay.
We can see it.
Okay, good. I want to just make sure I can see everyone on the side. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, let me go with the overview here. We were talking about peer bullying and Diana's team and I have been working a couple of sessions to actually think about how to do this and what references to look at. So I'm going to present material today from stuff that we've looked at. And the idea is that I just don't want to talk by myself. I'm going to ask for people to jump in whenever you want to and ask questions, and also add things that we haven't seen from your own experiences. The other thing is that I'm capturing something in an application called speech, which is what I do when I want to gather research material in a way that I can see causal relationships, but not yet create a system dynamics model. So sometimes I'll do this first, and then I'll start a system dynamics model. I'll continue doing research with this, but I'll go back and forth. So this is a precursor for doing a stock and flow diagram. So at one point, we'll ask, well, okay, what stocks do you see in this, so much of this material is taken from the National Academy of Sciences document, Preventing Bullying Through Science, Policy, and Practice. Okay. So there's different parts of this. This is the overview, and we're going to look at the roles related to bullying, to teach how it's related in schools, and how it's related to the individual themselves. And we'll also mention a few interventions that people have suggested. Okay. So first, let's look at roles. Let me go back. This thing's in the way. Okay. So typically in a school, we have incidents of bullying. So we decided to look at just the school environment, and not the community at the moment, the school, the family. We're just looking at the school environment that people are bullied. And given that I am now 5'3", I was much shorter when I was younger. I didn't have any growth spurts. It wasn't 6 foot. So I believe that I was a target for people to take advantage. And I had been, even outside of school, people would hustle me. They stole my sled one time and trapped me in the woods once. So I've experienced direct experience of bullying. So there's a key here. So these are harmful agent, a bully, and an issue is bullying. So there's going to be this little notation as we go forth. So sometimes bullies have assistants. They'll like some bullies are asocial in the sense that they'll push somebody off the train, and people will help them or cheer them on. I saw that with my colleague Heidi. She was on a train and she noticed that these guys were just waiting for the guy to just before he left, then he pushed them off. Some people push people downstairs, so there could be people assistants, and they're like maybe in a gang or others there, so there could be assistants to do that. Now, what counteracts? So these are countermeasures. So when I was in grade school, it was very pleasant. Within the school itself. It was a small community. It was Staten Island, New York, but there wasn't much bullying in the school itself. So, and I had a best friend, and it turns out that having friends helps. The more friends contribute to preventing you being bullied. So friends are important. And sometimes there are people who defend. I had this guy, I guess he was 6 foot, Herman Sternagel. He was a nice, well-built guy. He sort of like through high school, he was like a defender. So there are people who help and defend you. Now, it turns out that a student who's bullied could later become a bully themselves. So that's a definite danger. So when I was in grade school, and we were low income, middle class, low students, and we all were sort of, we didn't have the word then, but now we would say that we were nerds. And one guy was electrical engineer, one guy liked electronics, I liked science, another guy was into medicine, and ultimately we're still together, 4 of us. So we all 3 are in Boston. One's a psychiatrist, one built missiles, and I went into physics. The other one became a manager. So we were close friends in high school. However, they were building something called a junior high school in Staten Island when I was in 8th grade. And it's called a middle school. And we were thrown into this for 3 months. We had all gotten, passed a city test. We all gotten to go to a technical high school, which really saved us in Brooklyn. But at that point, we had to go to this junior high school, totally new environment. Everyone was mixed up. So one day I was sitting in music class, and this big guy sits next to me, and he starts tormenting me. He calls me names. He says, "Well, that girl is going to like you because you look such and such. You're a short." I'm not going to mention the words that they used. And I am shaking, literally shaking. All right, okay, because I haven't experienced this much before, and at one point, it went on for a little while, and he kept going on and on. So what I did, without thinking, is I hit him. You hear a loud clap. Of course, nothing happened. In front of the room, teacher's still working. He might have noticed it, but didn't say anything. And I'll get back to that later. And then he hit me. And that was the end. Never encountered that guy again. Never bothered me again. So I went through a threshold, personal threshold. And that, I would say, was, for me, it wasn't hard to be bullied, even though people tried. It was the bullies repeating actually over and over again. I'm not sure why, but later on, well, I've been in martial arts for 42 years. So, and I help teach kids, how to behave so they don't have to fight, but yet have the confidence that they can. And I taught women self-defense techniques, and along with my friend Heidi. Okay. So when I left, so there are bystanders typically, watching, and they were watching. No one did anything there or said anything. When I left the classroom, they all congratulated me, and I don't know. Later on, I wrote this article about that. My response was the wrong response. punching that person was not the response I'd want to teach people. The response I'd want to teach people is how to be able to manage your thoughts, your feelings, so that you don't have to fight. So that's a sort of a self-management, state management, emotional management approach. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Okay, so people doing nothing can send a message that bullying is acceptable. They can reinforce the bully. They can help the person who's bullied. So some passive bystanders might be inactive defenders just by Herman standing next to me. That was enough for nobody to come near me. Of course, we traveled from Staten Island to Brooklyn. We took a bus, a train, a subway. It was like a 2-hour trip back and forth to high school. The incidents happened a bit on that trip. So my question to people are now, does anyone have any other roles? Well, let me go on. There's more roles. There's school roles, the administrator and teachers, and we'll go through that next. Then there are other roles we're not really covering, law enforcement, parents. And as we were talking, I thought of another role. So another role could be the community, community centers. I can't spell. So is there any other roles that people see that I haven't really covered? Or any questions so far? I guess having a pet might help, but
yeah. I have just one question. It's kind of about the experience you said you had.
Yeah.
Where you hit back.
I did.
And you got congratulations. You were
later,
supported by
yeah, when I left the
you
room.
were supported by the community or whatever. And I wondered, do you yourself consider hitting back an act of bullying or not? Is it just a self-defense act? Is that different?
That was self-defense. I did not think about it. There was no thought about retaliating or anything. There was no thought.
Okay.
So I don't, what do I think of as an act of bullying?
Well, I guess I'm asking that because, you said that the student that was bullied can become a bully. And I just wondered, I'm just trying to clarify, did you feel like you became a bully? And
Absolutely not. I did not become a bully. That was when I was in grade school. There was an incident in there was an incident in the Army. I was in Vietnam, and this guy was unhappy that I had got a more advanced to was sergeant rank faster than his 7 years, and I was like 15 months. So I wasn't spending my whole lifetime in the Army. And he was drunk, and he came up to me and said, "I'm going to tear your throat out." Okay. So I was very fearful, and I was amazingly pretty calm. But I had two friends next to me, and we all come back from a karate class in Vietnam, and we managed to not fight him, just tone him down. So my feeling is that there was no lasting effect on me. My whole attitude has been find a way to manage your states and manage the situation. I mean, even well, I can go on, but even recently at a supermarket, someone was unhappy with something I suggested. So anyway, so any other questions?
I'd like to just make a statement. In my opinion, bullying is more premeditated intention of kind of harming someone else. It seems to me when you punch the guy back, that was a reaction, and it was more just an instantaneous. I don't consider that bullying, because bullying to me has more intention of doing harm to someone who is not provoking you necessarily. So I think there's a different mindset with bullying, at least in my particular interpretation of bullying.
It was certainly true. I didn't know what I was doing. I just reacted. There was no thought, no active thought or conscious thought. But anyway, and it wasn't, I mean, there are better ways of doing it. So let's move on to the next one, which will look at the school itself. Teachers in the school. So um, there are bullying incidents. Again, we think of stocks. Bullying incidents might be a stock you might want to have. So one thing that contribute to it is poor teacher-student relationships. There were poor teacher-student relationships in the school the temporary school I was in. The high school, it was totally rigorous discipline. You know, people it was a school you had to do a test for, public school. So another issue is that what contributes to teachers' relationships? Well, if they're seen as uncaring, you know, they don't care or respect. They don't want people to be successful. They're just there for the job or for some reason, or maybe they're scared. I mean, it could be that people in the classroom are scared of the teachers, you know. And one of our empathy was one of the traits that would be good for a person who's bullied to have, and all around for other people to have. Some teachers are seen as caring and empathetic, then it would counteract this poor relationship. So there are different roles teachers can play.
Uh, uh, Pascal, the comment you have to teachers seen as uncaring seems to be not supportive of the little icon you have there. Teachers seen as uncaring, they don't treat students with respect and want them to be successful.
Oops. Okay, we got to move that one. No, that belongs here.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay.
By the
Yeah.
way, I sent you a draft of this. This is an updated version.
And I'm sorry I didn't catch that before because I should have caught it with the draft that you sent
That's
us.
okay. I mean, even when writing an article, you see things and things. So it's fine. We just changed it.
So now I think a lot of the things that you are pulling together here are very well described in that book that you suggested that we read.
Yeah.
It's quite comprehensive.
Mhm.
And a very good source of information on what supports bullying and what helps the students who are bullied, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of what you're showing here, I see, comes from that particular
And from your
book.
notes, you had these notes of your comments that I looked at as I was making this. So I read it, and then Diana read it. She made a lot of notes. So, yeah. And So that was a description of what was happening. So what we can contribute is creating the dynamics behind it. They don't have the dynamics of how everything's connected. And I know there is probably more dynamics here than we could create, but there's lots of pieces to look at. As we said, it could be violent, but not just violent because the bully hurt this. It could be violent because the person was bullied, attacked the. I hadn't thought about that until I thought about my story. And teachers, they don't know how to intervene. How do you intervene when people are violent? A teacher is not expected to be a martial artist, or so you have to have a way. Maybe there's a button to press for the security, school security or something. Something has to happen.
Especially, I think, even more so female teachers who may not have size or whatever strength to, and I'm not sure how great it would be to try to separate these, but teachers can get hurt too in trying to break up some of these kinds of things.
It's not their job.
Yeah.
So safety in school is a big thing. It's probably an outside issue for us. Okay, so and this teaming where teachers get together to teach a few students, that was in the book also, and it's if that happens, it may be counter to students feeling independent and self-reliant. May it help that? So, okay, so let's look at the school. So, like, my school was the one, the junior high school or middle school wasn't. I don't think I perceived it as it was not a very good environment. So there's perceptions of not a good environment, and when that happens, it's more likely for people to say, "Well, it's not. Let's." Well, it could be many reasons why that's true. So one could be they don't enforce rules. Okay. So what do you need? what counteracts this? You need teacher training and school protocols. And here you need teacher training also, with teachers not knowing how to intervene. You need fair enforcement of rules, and that counteracts that. You need a supportive and safe managed class. And there are some universal preventive interventions they said were social, emotional classroom lessons, teaching the class about it, teacher taught, what am I expecting here? And sometimes we see that. I saw that a lot in my technical high school. This is what I want from you. You know, and also if there are counselors may be another role that I haven't put in the other category. They might discuss strategies and emotionally relevant issues. So, for example, counselors might be another role that we want to add here.
In the school, I think, not to the right, but to the left.
Yes.
Under school. And it actually, the article talked about the individual working with bullies. This was very effective. Working individually with students who bully is very effective. So that's where counselors can definitely make a big impact.
But this belongs here.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get that in there eventually. So that's that. Let's go back to school. And I think that might be it. Okay, another thing was playground supervision. That was another thing they mentioned. Okay, so that takes care of the school organization and the teachers, or any other things that you might think would fit in these categories. I mean, it's not totally inclusive, or any other relationships that might be by existing. We talked about smaller class size, relationships, student-teacher relationships, perceptions of negative climate. Is there anything else that someone might think of?
One thing that surprised me from the reading was that small class sizes can be a problem because and putting kids in groups,
right?
Because there's much more contact with people who might not come into contact. Right. I can remember when I was teaching an Algebra 1 class and I had some kids in groups, and in comes this huge male student in the middle of the year, and I had to put him in a group, and the other kids looked like 2 grades or 3 grades lower than this fellow, and you could tell that they were automatically afraid of him. I didn't know quite what to do. He didn't create any problems. He actually wasn't in my class very long. I think that he had some other kinds of more serious issues. But when you have young kids, smaller kids in a group with someone like that, they don't know them, and he's obviously really big and probably older, it can create a situation for potential bullying more so than in a larger class, I think.
That was surprising to me too.
Yes.
And as a side note, independent of bullying, there's an article on algebra and the algebra wars in schools these days about whether to teach in 8th grade and how people go about it, and should we teach it to everybody, or if not.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
I said, wow, I just read that the other day. I said, that's interesting.
Yeah. Steve, okay. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm really interested in this section about the teachers being seen or not seen as caring. And as you were talking, Diana, I was thinking that, yes, I think in the short term, you might get more opportunities for bullying if you put kids in small groups. But at the same time, by having the opportunity and having a caring teacher deal with it, it sends out a message to other kids. And I in my experience, I also worked for a very long time in a public school, is that there's so much of teacher behavior is not dictated, but it's certainly molded by what's going on with the administration and what the administration will allow. or what the administration expects of a teacher in the school. And I get to, yeah, as I look at all of this, I'm really thinking this is kind of like I hesitate
That's a
to call
feedback loop from
yeah,
organization over to the teacher side.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And I, I'm looking, it's not really hierarchical as much as it is that one subsystem is embedded in another, right? So you have the
Right.
classroom embedded in the school, embedded
Right.
in the community.
Right.
And so I think all of those links are going to be pretty important as we develop this out. I know that the boundary is the classroom, but I think it's really hard. It's really hard to think about the classroom without
the
thinking about
boundary is
the
the school.
The boundary is the school.
Okay.
The school. We left out the community, and that's only for the beginning, so we can get something. And we left out actually parents, which it's another huge important idea.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those could just be parameters that just kind of come in.
Yeah.
From the outside anyway. So
I add the admin expectation of teachers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Of teachers, for teachers, maybe 4 teachers.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a really important point. Thanks, Steve. We need to have that there.
You know, the other thing I know there are a lot of people that are not from the United States on this call, and I would love to know if they have the same kinds of experiences in their classrooms in different countries. It may be different. I don't know. I spent my whole life in the United States doing this. So
would anyone we have someone from Brazil. I think we have someone from Colombia. Certainly we have some people from Turkey. Does this, what we're talking about, make sense? Or did you want to add anything to what we have here? I don't want to put you on the spot, but we do want to try to recognize, and from Egypt, Mohammed says, Egypt, yes, similar experiences. That's great. Thank you, Mohammed. Well, you don't have to speak up now, but we would like you to add your own comments as we go along with this. By the way, Pascal, I really like the storytelling feature that you're doing here. It really makes the pieces much more understandable. That's
thank you.
Great.
It's the first time I've used it in this program. I have the opportunity to use it. I did it myself, but it's the first time I had the opportunity to use it. So yeah.
So I think you have one more slide you want to go through?
One more slide. Let me move.
Okay. And so for the audience, please feel free to raise your hand or
just talk.
To just talk and add your comments. I'm looking at the chat, so I will try to monitor that.
So it's good looking at the roles, and it's good looking at the schools, but what about the students themselves? So I do coaching. I haven't coached students. I haven't coached young people other than in karate class in some of this, but there are things you could use, and there is some information about it. So let's look at the self, which means the individual. So we've got the activities bullying, and there's potential bullying targets, there are potential bullies, and there's any student with a problem. Those are categories of people. Any student might have different problems. It could be academic, mental health, behavioral. There's some problem from home or from somewhere. So those are the situations we have. And sometimes that they don't engage, some are loners. We hear the problems with loners. They don't engage in activity. So they either might be victims or they might be bullies, probably victims of bullying. A nerd, the only nerd in the school. Okay. One who doesn't have enough money to buy, their parents don't have enough money to buy clothes. So they come in stuff that's not in fashion. So one of the interventions in the manual was social skill, teaching social skills. So that's one possibility, and it can help with the bullies. And maybe these don't have enough social skills, so their only skill is violence, or their only skill is taunting. Okay. Then there are cultural imbalances. There could be, you know, religious, sex, nerds, loners, LGBT. Sorry for the phone. And there are talked about, well, maybe we have one intervention, but maybe we use multiple interventions and school-wide interventions, and the manual lists some of those to handle some of these things. Then, and I think this is one of the most important things is emotional skills management. And I know in Mexico they have a bullying, and it's a field called neurosemantics, which I'm in, and the group in Mexico has taught kids in schools emotional techniques to handle bullying in schools. And it's really, for example, one is, well, let me give you an example. I don't like heights. So I had to drive these guys I was at a conference. I had to drive them, I had to rent a car, drive them on this mountain on the edge. You know, these mountains in the West where you look down and you imagine dying because, I don't know, Woody Allen had a movie like that. The guy was raining and he talked about, well, you know, we could die, you know, just drive down. So it's very scary for me. So what do I do? So I'm in this. So what I do is think, okay, I need to calm myself down. So I thought of holding a baby, which you have to be calm to hold a baby, to get calm. And that sort of modulated fear. I still was fearful, but I was modulating fear. It's not getting rid of it, but it's modulating it. So I was in this a couple of years ago, I was in a restaurant. I was in a grocery store. This guy, he wasn't, I don't think he knew what was going on there. So I suggested he put his stuff on the counter because that's how things were working in this particular, not a restaurant, it was a grocery store. And he turned to me and says, "No one tells me what to do," as if he was going to attack me. So of course I jumped into calm fear. I put my weight on one foot so that I could run if necessary or do anything else if necessary, and didn't say anything. That was the end of it. But so there are texturing techniques called the metastates of modulating different fears. So that's one thing. Let's go on. So the other thing, well, the technique that wasn't in this book, these are techniques from neurosemantics, is a power zone technique. So I just want to explain this one because I think it's really useful and gives you an idea of what some of these emotional skills training things can do that makes sense. You have, you speak, you have thoughts, you have feelings, you have behavior. And if you own them, that they're yours and no one can take them away from you, they're my thoughts, they're my feelings. So if someone says something to me and I feel bad, it's my feelings. My relationship with them needs to be worked out, but how I feel is my feelings. So there's an exercise where you think about something you own, like a toothbrush that's only yours. Think about owning that, and then you apply it to your feelings. I own my toothbrush. Well, I get a feeling of ownership. Now I apply it to my feelings. Now I own my feelings. So this is called the power zone technique. So there are things, and several more of those things that are maybe not standard, but would help students. And they do that in Mexico in their program, a bullying program for kids. So another thing, students with problems, you might need to have more intense support than what typically we had in the last slide for if you identify them. And that, I guess, I'm not sure how that's done in schools. The other part is that, what about these people? Well, there was another article and it talked about, well, they may have a low level of well-being. And they would need to enhance their self-concept, who they are as a self, what their identities are. Not that you need one, you need at least some that are nice. I have multiple identities, depending on, social identities, family identities, work. So there's lots of things you can do for your self-concept. Also, and I think this is important, and this article mentioned, and I'll show you in a minute, resilience. So in my mind, resilience is a lifelong activity. Practicing, and one of the first steps in practicing resilience, and this could help with students, is accepting the situation. I am 5'3" now. I accept that. Nothing. I mean, I had experiences in a bullying experience. I accept them. That's it. I can't change them. I can only change how I think about them. So resilience is accepting those things, and the next thing is having an optimistic explanatory style. What does that mean? It means that what happens is not the situation is not forever. It's not just me. It's not my entire life. It's sort of like people have this thing called learned hopelessness. Hopelessness. There's also learned optimism. So if you think those things, it isn't forever. It's not just me, and it's not everything. It's just a situation. That type of thinking is another step in resilience. So those are the things that are components. So just saying resilience, well, okay. But saying what it actually can mean is more important, and actually teaching those things. So, and there's an article I just found, and I sent a link. I think it's free. You can read it. Resilience and self-concept as mediating factors in the relationship between bullying victims and a sense of well-being in adolescents. So it's in the journal. 2000. It's relatively recently. They talk about resilience and self-concept. So that's something, another resource. Because I saw this thing about enhancing self-concept, and I was thinking about resilience, and that fit it all together. So one last thing, there's also having de-escalation approaches in schools. So this is my last slide. Is there any questions or anything anybody wants to add? I think it's a major one. It has actually a lot of stuff in it. You would think that it wouldn't be much, but there's a lot of things to think about here as far as, it starts with the individual, but the individual is in a school, and the school is in a classroom, and the classroom's in a school, and that's in a community. So there's all these coming out. There's all these layers coming out, and there's a lot of feedback loops within these layers. So one question overall for all of this is, what are the stocks? And then we can talk about this after I give my presentation. What are the stocks? Any more roles? Any more loops, feedback loops that you might see in this activity? So this is just setting the stage for doing that stock and flow diagram.
So for the audience, I want you to understand we're thinking about having another meeting in July where we actually start to put together some kind of a model. This meeting, it was mostly understanding the components of the problem better. So I think Pascal has done a really great job of identifying the separate pieces of a lot of the components of the problem here. And so I'm not sure we need to necessarily identify stocks, or maybe that could be something we do before we leave today, is to identify some stocks. But is our picture complete? I do think that one thing Pascal has done here with self is point out the really important components to help support the person who is bullied. We don't often spend much time on those people who are bullied. In school, we don't do a lot of these different kinds of things to help a person figure out how to de-escalate and enhance self-concept and social skills training and a lot. We don't do a lot of that for those who are bullied. Our focus tends to be on the person creating the problem, which is the bully. And so there are a lot of pieces here, I think, that are really important. And I think that you have done, as you tell us your stories, Pascal, that you have done yourself that have made you strengthen your own internal way to not react by necessarily hitting somebody. Of course, it doesn't hurt that you know Taekwondo.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big deal. That you
fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm still practicing, and we still work on it.
But I mean, that is kind of in the movies, like in Karate Kid, where the person who's bullied builds up their skill so that it helps build up their confidence and learn how to de-escalate problems. But we have so much information in these 4 slides that we can use to start talking about the actual problem.
And I will send you these slides. You can, they're updated version, which is the one I have.
So we have a comment here. The next meeting to this subject seems very interesting. Can I read some texts in the meantime? And so in the email that was sent to you, there was a link to a download to the 3 chapters in that book that happen to be free online about bullying. And so if you want to do some more reading about this topic, and you will find a lot of what Pascal has put into his diagram listed in that book, very scientifically done. So it's quite an interesting book. And then he sent some other kinds of things for us to read so we could have a conversation about this. But I'd like to open the floor for anyone who
I think
would like.
Don had a question.
Who had? Oh, sorry, I didn't see, Don, your hand. I didn't see the hand. Go up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks. So I mean, just trying to think about translating into stocks and flows. So two of the things that I think about and how they create problems for me. So one is I see bullying as in the context of a goal state, right? That there's an imbalance between a perceived level of power or status in some way, right? And so a difference between a perceived level and a desired level, and the bullying being an effort to bring those bring the actual state into alignment with the expectation or the desire. But then all of the surrounding environment from the school and from the people, the bystanders and so forth, that there's also a perception. Just thinking about a stock of the perception of the effectiveness of bullying in achieving that goal state. That all of these environmental variables kind of feed into that perception of the effectiveness of bullying, right? So if bystanders push back against the bully, or if there's strong school enforcement, right? Those are messages that indicate that bullying is not an effective method of achieving that status.
Right.
And then just another observation, maybe going back to the diagrams Pascal was sharing. Two things that just come to mind for me. So one is that a lot of our school practices are very deficit focused, and I think those tend to aggravate the characteristics that make people vulnerable to being bullied, just by focusing on those deficits rather than assets, right? So, right, if Pascal is 5'3", that's a deficit from a lot of perspectives, but there are advantages to being small.
Planes, it's good to be on planes.
Yeah, on a plane, right? I'm 6'3", right? I hate, my knees are all bruised by the time I get off a plane. So, right. So, if we changed our school cultures and practices to focus on assets instead of deficits, that also feeds into that status issue, or victimization traits. But I where I struggle is how to connect those individual goal-seeking patterns into what's happening more broadly within a school environment. So,
well, wouldn't it be what affects these things? What affects like if a bully needs to his positive outcome is to feel important, and maybe he can feel important if he acts on someone who is, you know, maybe the act is not it, but maybe showing people how his behavior, and it's easy because it's a person who's not going to respond. I can show you how important because I can beat up this person. So if you want to be like me and beat up people, well, I'm just wondering if what so I back off. What affects him being important? What in the environment will? Is there other things in the environment which may make him feel important, but not that behavior? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of emotional states in people or emotional goals, and what else could training, maybe emotional training, what would satisfy that,
I
minimize.
think sports has a lot to do with
Yeah.
that. Like people who are, and this is an overgeneralization, but if you're not that good in school, if you're not that academically inclined or gifted in that way, but you have a large physical size, you often don't get recognized for the lack of academic ability in the classroom. But in sports, you can become important,
Mhm.
and it's a way for um, people to deal with that extra energy and aggression that young people tend to have in a positive way. So it's a positive way to recognize strengths that maybe don't get recognized in the classroom. For example, well, this is kind of on the, I used an activity in my Algebra 1 class. If you're taking Algebra 1, and this is on the topic, but don't want to go there. If you're taking Algebra 1 in high school these days in the United States, you're not very good in math because a lot of the really strong math kids have taken Algebra 1 in middle school. So I was teaching an Algebra 1 class, and I did this activity for collecting data, and it was how high you could put a Post-it note on the wall. And I had a student who wasn't very strong, but he was very athletic. And he didn't want to just stand there and post it. He wanted me to open the door to my classroom so he could get a running start and jump. And obviously, his was the tallest one in the room at that time. And so he kind of stood out in a positive way, in that situation. So I think it's trying to figure out for those people who can't shine or don't know how to shine in a restricted academic environment, if we can find ways to let them shine, build their self. Now that's not,
But
I mean,
Diana,
that's pretty narrow, but
I think the counter argument. So, I mean, in my experience, I think physical education classes were where most bullying took place.
oh,
That's where it was most aggravated, and maybe because you're flipping the power dynamic in a way, switching from academic to physical.
yeah. Well, I was just, thinking about trying to enhance the self-concept. I think it's different now, but when I was young, it was sort of hard. Girls were feeling like they shouldn't be in math or they shouldn't be in science, and had a less of a self-concept there. But then I went to an all-girls high school, and in that school, girls were expected to be good at everything. So it sort of changed my perception on what I should be good at. And so there's some of that building up the student in what is recognized that they are good at.
And
Kind of build
it
up.
could be context dependent too. A different intervention for gym for
Right.
gym
For
class
Jim.
as opposed to math class. So the dynamics will be different. The other thing is that I'm thinking that maybe looking at all of the states you'd want the different participants to have resilience,
Yeah.
identity things, and thinking about, well, what's who has to be in this state. I sent a paper about co-flows, about
Yeah.
how managed states manage these, loyalty in a company. People come in. So and there's an intervention part in there. So just looking at it, I mean, when we look at the model, you can look at it, what are the states we want everyone to have? Resilience, this, what contributes to those states? What detracts from those states? It's just thinking, when you're thinking about the stock and flow diagram, those are also could be variables.
Right, right.
And then there's another thing I was thinking about is that there's a evolution, you know, from people coming in to being bullied, to being a bully, to be a bystander. Maybe there's a relationship between those that would be bystander could become a bully, or a reinforcer could become a bully. So there's relationships in there that could be a. The thing is that if you think about these things, the question is, what have I experienced in my environment in schools that say something about this type of thinking? I mean, do I see bystanders? What do they act? Do they become bullies? What, you know, what's is there any experiences that I have or you have that would lend credence to one way of thinking or another?
But I also think we need to go beyond personal experience.
Yeah.
That like that book that you sent us was really very well written and comprehensive on a lot of the different pieces. I learned a lot just by reading the 3 chapters that,
and free
that you
also.
recommended.
It's a free resource.
Yes, and it's a free resource. So I think that would be helpful. We only have like 6 minutes left. Should we go back to some of the slides and say, what do we think the stocks are? That's because that could get us off the ground, ready for our July meeting. Certainly feel free to bring in anything you want to say, but as far as the direction for moving forward, let's go to the
Which one do you want?
let's go to the teacher in school.
Teacher in school. Okay, here we go.
Like you said when you were presenting this, it seems like bullying incidents could be a stock.
Yes, definitely.
Are there other things in this diagram we could see as stocks?
So what I was trying to say earlier is that I thought one stock could be the perception of the effectiveness of bullying in achieving status, and a lot of these interventions, I think, are designed to impact that directly.
So is that in the last slide on self? No, that's okay.
Perception. No, I think, well, I mean, it could be both self and school level.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it's the whole school environment about whether bullying is tolerated, whether it's encouraged, whether it's, I think of like, boarding schools. I mean, a lot of stories from boarding schools where bullying was actually encouraged as a way to toughen people up.
So we got 2 stocks, some of them which could be in other places, but this is a good parking place for them. They don't have to necessarily be here. Class size is a possibility.
Yeah, in the same vein as what Don's getting at, I wonder if there's a perception about caring among the teachers or among adults in the building that would change over time depending upon other aspects of the school community.
So perceptions of caring, that would be in here. So say more about that. What would that be?
Well, that part of this model seems to be very, very who are the ones who are being bullied or are doing the bullying, and they have perceptions around whether or not the school or the teachers are a supportive community.
Right.
And they will react in terms of the gap between what they see as what they think should be caring and what they actually experience as caring. So it's
And
kind of
that could,
the same goal gap thing I think that Don's getting at.
yeah, I mean, that could certainly uh, feed into the isolation or the feeling of isolation
Right.
at the
Right.
individual level.
One of the things I thought that was kind of interesting in the reading was that there was a structure that was firm and fair, both in the school and in the classroom. So students felt that they were treated fairly and that there were rules and the rules were enforced. And I suppose that could be perception, but I think it's less, I think it's more an actual thing than a perception necessarily that they're so like Pascal, when you were talking about the high school you went to,
Yeah.
that was they had established rules
Yes.
and the rules were enforced. And so in a way, it was considered a safe place. So that could be a perception, but it was a safer place. And the middle school was not. It had just been established. And I think they were still, it sounded to me like the administration was still getting its feet wet on how to deal with all the students that came in and they weren't, I don't know, maybe I misunderstood that, but
No, that's true. So what would this stock be? How would you name it?
um, what did it was a structure, rules enforced, rules fairly enforced in the school and in the classrooms. It was both of those places that were very important. I don't know. It's not really a stock. I have to think about how to
Well,
say it
it's
differently,
just
but
this is just like a thought that you can or come
yeah,
back to and think
but it
about.
had to be fairly enforced, rules fairly enforced. So that there was a justice. Students could perceive that there was a just environment.
Right.
Well, that's a better one. I mean, that's perceived just environment. That's sort of like, um, yeah, is this a good place to be?
Right. But it had to be in both the school and in the classroom. And there was a kind of a discussion on how teachers react if they feel like they're not being very fairly treated. It could have carry over to the classroom where they are themselves. Like you send a kid who is misbehaving in your classroom to the principal, and the principal doesn't do anything and sends them right back to your classroom.
So it's not
It
just
undermines.
yeah. So it's admin rules toward teachers too.
Yeah. This stock is getting pretty big.
Well, you can. It's just ideas that you can put together.
Right, right.
Just putting down the ideas, you can think about what the stock might be, and it
Yeah.
just
So we are actually out of time. I don't want to keep people beyond the hour that we can continue to talk. If people would like to say something, I don't want to cut you off. Um, so we can stay. If you need to leave, feel free to leave. We can talk if some people have some things that they want to add. And Pascal, you said you would make this available?
yeah. I'm going to not later today. I'm
Yeah,
going
no, no,
to
no. Yeah, right.
yeah. I'm
Later
going to
today.
send you this um no the slides
Okay.
and
So this is recorded and it will be on our System Dynamic Society pre-college SIG webpage. And so you can look at the recording and you will be able to download the recording from there. Not the recording, but the slides. You'll be able to download the slides from there. But remember, in 2 months, we will continue this conversation to try to actually put together a stock flow diagram. Probably, definitely not a working model, but the beginnings of a stock flow diagram that will incorporate some of these ideas.
And at a later date, I'll probably run a psychology and behavior SIG meeting about wherever we came to and what else people can do. So that's beyond these sessions.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Would anyone else like to say anything? I don't want to cut off conversation. I know I talk a lot, but
Do you want to see another
else?
slide, comment on any other slides, or should I just stop sharing?
Well, I don't know. Does someone want to see another slide? No? Okay. Well, I guess then we can be finished.
I think my 10-minute talk went over.
Well, actually, your 10-minute talk was, if we would have let you just talk, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But we were part of it.
That's what I wanted. I wanted the engagement. Yeah. I wanted to keep talking because really,
right.
Talking is, to me, it's not as good as people telling me what they think. And
I thought you set it up very nicely with the storytelling. I thought that was very helpful, and I thought it went well. Certainly brought up a lot of really important ideas.
And the recording will be on the website?
It will be on the, there's a webinar set of icons, and underneath that, I think there are the SIG meetings, and you have to scroll. It's the topmost one is the most recent. Yes. So you just click on that, and it will have the recording and any handouts for the recording. So it will be there, and it's a System Dynamics Society, and you can go to systemdynamicssociety.org, and then you can go to, what's the tab? I forget what the tab is. But you find special interest groups. In one of the tabs, it goes down. I think it's Connect or something like that. And then it has all the different groups you can connect with. Special interest group, and then there are a lot of special interest groups. You go to pre-college education, and that will take you to our webpage where we have a lot of resources, including the recording of this meeting. Okay? Send this, okay, the problem is, okay, I need to quit talking. If somebody else can talk, then I will try to put the address for our pre-college in the, I can't find
I'm trying to get that, Diana. It's just the society webpage isn't responding for me.
It's Connect. The tab is Connect. You go down to Special Interest Group and over to Pre-College Education. Here we go. Okay, I will put it in the chat. There it is. What? Can you see it? Did it not go? Oh, I know what I did. Okay, click there.
I think some people.
So Emery already got it there.
Okay.
And the links to these articles that I had, I'm going to send those also. I'll put those in the presentation, and the PDF I send, the links to the two documents I mentioned.
Okay, great. That'll be great. Oh, I sent it to Senna. Sorry, instead of sending it to everybody. Well, anyway, I think you have it there from lots of people. The link that you can go to see our pre-college website. Thank you for coming, and we will continue this in 2 weeks. And thank you, Pascal, because I'm not sure I could have done this. You brought a lot of insight, and the software that you used is really quite interesting.
I recommend it. I mean, I'm trying to use it in all my applications now. I've done it for a few years, but now I'm actually getting more involved in using it. I use it for a lot of things. Yeah.
And what is it called?
South Beach.
South Beach.
South Beach.
Anyway, South Beach is the software that he used to show you all the pieces. And so that's kind of interesting. It's different from setting up a causal loop first. But I think it's kind of a concept map, right? That's what you referred to it
A little
as.
more than a concept map.
It's
Yeah,
more than a
the
concept
relationships.
map.
But I'll send a link to that software also.
Okay.
I'm not affiliated with the company, although I know the owner and the software developer, his wife.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming, and we hope to see you next month when we do our webinar on mentoring. The kind of experts mentoring, helping teachers actually bring system dynamics into the classroom. And so that will be next month. And then the month after that, we'll come back to this topic again. And thank you, Pascal, for all your work on this. It's been hugely helpful.
Well, thank you for inviting me because this is a topic I'm very much interested in.
Okay. See you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.